So the first thing I want to talk about is the ink pen, just so that you know, you don't have to have anything fancy. I have a collection of all different kinds of pens.
Oh.
They are ranging from, you know, $5 pens to dollar pens. You just have to find what you like. The one thing to look for is that you want something that's going to have a finer tip. Okay, because if you have a thick tip, it's not going to give you the texturing that you want. I just actually bought these. They're Sharpies, just from Walgreens. They come 2 in a pack, and I thought they were quite wonderful. If you're not using ink pen with watercolor or something else, it doesn't really matter that it be waterproof, but if you are going to use some water effects on it, then you want it to be waterproof. And sometimes it just needs to dry a little bit to prove that it's waterproof. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so we've got the pens, got the paper. Melissa, can we go to the drawing? Okay, so what I have here is one that I started, and you can see that there's all different types of texturing and line effects, and I'm going to show you how to use all of them. And they're very, very easy and very really fun. You know, ink drawing is very therapeutic because you can just go on and just slowly add, and you know, you can just almost like doodle on it. You can't go wrong if you just do it slowly. The other one I wanted to show you is I did another one, but I put a watercolor base. Now I chose this drawing. I was looking at, you know, Chinese ink drawings. A lot of them are done with a combination of pen and actual, you know, liquid ink. So on this one, on the photo, you can see in some of the darker parts, that's probably like an ink wash. But I thought it would also be cool to do it with watercolor. So you can actually do this effect later if you have a waterproof pen. So what I did is I just took a blue and a green on my palette, and I just did some really light washes. I looked at the photo so I could kind of see where I would want the darker areas to be. And I just very loosely, just very lightly, just put in some color, let it dry, and then I worked on it with the ink pen. Now, if you want to do it on the one that we're going to work on today, we don't have enough time to wet it and then dry it and do all of that. So if you want, you can actually add the color afterwards. Just remember that you are doing a wash. So it is going to be like the lightest, weakest tea color ever, okay? Because you just want accents of it. And honestly, it doesn't really matter how you do it. If you do the ink first or the watercolor first, you know, you have to try both and see what you like. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some pen techniques. And then I'm going to show you from those techniques how we can create certain textures. And remember, there's really no rule to how you do this. The one thing that you want to remember with ink pen is that there's no going back. Once you put in a line, it's there. So it's best to start off with your big, lighter lines and lighter areas, and then go towards the dark, because the only way you can fix the line is by working around it, but you cannot take it off. And if you do make a boo-boo somehow and put a line where you didn't want it, you know, just think of it as a challenge and try to creatively work with it. And sometimes those are really surprising things that can happen with art, and, you know, they're called happy mistakes. So we are going to do just some practice techniques if you want to do that with me. So I'm going to grab my pen. And some of these are, you know, very much similar to what you do with a pencil, except with an ink pen, you're going to get probably a more consistent, stronger line. The first thing I want to show you is that with an ink pen, if you're in doubt, you know, use the side. You're going to get less of a strong line versus if I go with the tip. See, side, you're going to get a slightly broken up line. When you use the tip, straight on, you're going to get a stronger line. And the thing is, I mean, there are times where you do want the strong line, especially if you're detailing and finishing up. And then when you're just kind of still just putting in your lines, you probably want to use the side. So just angle it kind of as much as you want. So that's really the only kind of two tonal grades that you're going to get just from the single line. So that's the first thing. So basically, you know, as a rule, just, you know, think twice, ink once, because, you know, you just want to do it thoughtfully. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is, which is probably you're familiar with, which is hatching. And hatching is basically you just create lines next to each other. They don't have to be regular. They don't have to be anything. And then the closer the lines together, the darker the area is going to appear. So this is how I'm actually achieving a darker area. So again, it's just, they could go either way. And then when you closer together, they're gonna get darker. So this is basic hatching. So the second one, which is, you know, a relative, is basically, it's called cross hatching. So you have your lines vertical or horizontal, but they cross each other. And they could cross. So the more they cross, the darker areas you're going to get. And you do not need to use this in a whole patch. You can just use, like, you know, just little ones here and there, just very light ones. Can do some diagonals. I mean, it can be as structured or as loose as you want it to be. Okay, so let's just put them nicely into squares. Okay, so I've got cross hatching. Okay, and then we have contouring. A contour is basically, you know, like a curve that you do. And a contour is when you're following the shape, when you have a rounded shape. So let's say we have a ball and we are going with lines that are directional. One thing about, you know, ink drawing is that you want to make sure that your lines are following a direction and that they're following the shape of the object that you're drawing. So this is contour. And just like you have with the hatching, you can have a cross contour. So see, they're going in a rounded motion. They're following those outlines, and then they go in the other direction. So you have a cross contour. And again, they don't have to be that regular. So we've got a cross contour. Then we have stippling, which is basically just dots. I don't have a lot of patience for stippling, so what I do is I do a kind of a slightly different version of stippling, which I make teeny little circles. And that's how I create my stippling. But it can be effective in small areas, like some of the leaves that we're gonna have. So this is stippling. And then we have kind of the random stuff that you do, which is basically squiggles, wavy lines, doodle lines. And these are really a lot of fun to do because you can create all sorts of textures. And the more they cross, the darker the areas are going to be. Okay. So let's call this swirling. It has many different names. So these are the basic techniques that you're going to use with an ink pen. You also use them with a pencil, but they do have slightly different effects. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, you know, the question is what type of technique do I use in what area? So I'm going to show you over here. Let me do this one because that's clear. Okay, so what I did over here, for example, is swirling and squiggling. What I did here is hatching because I wanted kind of a stronger line for the rocks. This is also hatching. So this one has some slight contour in it because the top of the, I don't know what this thing is called, pergola something. It's got some curve. I also used contour lines in the tree because the trunk is rounded. I used hatching over here. I used some cross hatching in the mountains. And then there's another thing you can do, which is basically using a shape to create a texture. So you can use anything from, you know, like what I did in that area is I did some kind of almost like diamond lines, diamond shapes, I mean. Okay, you can use kind of dots. These will all give different textures. You know, the most important thing is, you know, don't think of it as a pattern. You know, you just want to put them in different sizes and wherever they need to sit. There's no rule for it. So basically you can use any shape that you want to create a certain texture. You can, you know, do little squares. I like to use the squares kind of sometimes even, you know, bigger ones in random order. So all of these, when they're put together, they will create a certain texture. Okay, so we're going to start. And I recommend that you kind of work small on this one because it's a little time consuming, just so that you can get some work done today, and or you can work on half a page if you want. So the first thing we're going to do with, like I said, with ink pen, you want to start with your larger, lighter areas. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of separate my foreground from my background. I'm going to use the side of my pen and I'm just lightly marking that area. See, very light. And also when in doubt, just dot it out. You can always combine it. So I'm going to just, again, with this side, I'm very lightly putting in, there's 2 mountains or 1 mountain? Okay, 2 mountains. I had half the screen. And then we've got one up here. Okay, I'm going to put kind of this cliff formation here. Again, I'm using the side. I'm just almost using like a stipple effect. Okay, and I'm just going to mark out those greens in the bottom. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place the little pergola hut thing. And again, I'm just using very light lines because really, I mean, this is the one step that if you put like, you know, if you do like a strong line, you know, you're not going to be able to get rid of it if you want to change it. So it's, look at the difference. It's much more forgiving and will give you a lot more room to work with it. Okay, I'm going to put it in. Notice that it kind of goes up here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the cliff. It's got what appears to be, you know, the top area. Again, I'm just using very light, just go really lightly and kind of even hold your pencil loosely so it doesn't get any strong marks that you can't get rid of. Okay, I'm going to place the trees. Again, holding it kind of towards the end of the pen. That way it won't give you any direct strong marks. I'm just going to kind of place where the leaves would be. And there's one over here. And I really like this branch on the right, so I'm going to just pull it probably in both my drawings. I kind of pulled it in a little bit more. I just like how it frames. And see, you know, when you hold it at a slant, hold the pen at a slant, you know, there's times where you won't get a line. And sometimes it's like, ooh, I'm glad I didn't have a line because I did not want that there. Okay. Give the rocks some separation. And again, you know, whenever you're separating or dividing an area, make sure that you check it, because maybe your initial outline was not the most accurate. Again, holding the side. Okay, see, this went too deep, I think, so I'm gonna lift it up. Bring these lines a little bit lower. Okay, oh, that little bridge over here. Okay, so now we have everything that we're going to work with. So now the fun begins. Now where you start is really up to you. I started kind of in this area because I felt that this is kind of just anchoring stuff, and this is really forming the rest of the cliff. So what I'm going to do is I am going to fill in kind of this area over here. I'm going to just mark it out so you see what I'm talking about. So this area. And what I'm going to do is I am going to do kind of a rough crosshatch. The reason I'm doing that is I want to fill it in with a little darkness before I start the squiggling, okay? So again, the cross hatching, I'm using the side. And I'm moving faster because I'm filling out an area. So I'm not working on a specific shape. You know, again, the lines do not have to be in any particular order. What I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to create some darkness. So I don't have to darken it all at once. And the same thing you would do if you're using pencil, using watercolor. You just want to give it a little bit of a base. Okay. All right, so I do have some darkness. So you can see in this area over here is where it's getting darker, and you have different values of dark and light. So what we're going to do is we're going to squiggle. So basically just, you know, just doodle, just have fun with it. Have them cross. Don't go too dark until you've filled out your, you know, your layer. Don't stay for too long in one area, just move around. And if you come across an area that's really light, like over here, maybe just very lightly squiggle over it. And realize that, you know, this is a process of building the surface. So, you know, right now it looks a little bit rough, but it's going to start looking a lot more pulled together with my next round. Okay, so I'm going to tackle this really dark area here. So again, now my squiggles are getting a little bit closer. And make sure that you constantly look at your reference. You don't want to start, you know, squiggling and losing track. And then there's some edges here that are really dark, and I'm going to put them in. Whatever it is you do, no matter how dark you go, don't go with the maximum darkness at this point, because you still have an entire drawing to fill. And see, the more I go over it, okay, so you can see how this area is starting to have a lot of depth to it. And just follow the shape. There is a shape that you will see. I mean, you want to follow the basic guideline of the shape. You don't have to do it exactly. Just, you know, mind things like perspective and depth and proportions. Okay, so I've got this area well established. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on these poles. Now, these are probably the only straight lines that we have, and honestly, they're really not that straight if you zoom in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bunch of just hatched long lines. to start. And then I'm going to do them vertically. So this way, you know, you don't have the pressure of doing that one straight line. And even if it goes off a little bit, I kind of like those accidental little extras. Okay, again, I'm not going with my maximum darkness because this is a really dark area, and look at how dark this one is. Okay, so I'm going to move up. I'm just going to give this a little bit more structure. And, you know, I mean, it is architectural, but it's very fluid, and it, you know, it looks like it's, you know, handmade, hand built, and it just has a lot of kind of loose lines and irregularities. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this just a rough, darker tone. So I'm just going to just lightly just hatch. And notice when I'm using my hatching, I'm going in the direction that the shape is taking, okay? So on this one, I'm gonna go with more diagonals because the shape is diagonal here. I'm seeing it at an angle. Again, I'm just doing these to give myself some tones to work with so I don't have to fill it in all the way. Look at how much depth we already have. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just gonna lightly section this. And again, does not have to be regular at all. And then on this one, I'm going to start from the top. It's going in that diagonal direction away from us. And then I am going to start putting some contour lines in those areas. And I'm going to show you how cool these look, especially when at the sides over here, when they start joining with the ones next to them, they're going to create a lot of depth. They kind of get darker towards the edge over here. To make them darker, just have them be closer together. And again, you know, don't lose sight of the direction of your lines when you go over here. But see, what's really cool is the initial you know, just simple hatching that I put just gave it a lot of ground. So I'm not going to work on each area entirely because I want to show you all different things to do, but I am going to tackle some of the darker areas in here. So this is, you know, a time where you can actually go in with the tip of the pen because you really want to get some darker areas. Again, just for safety measures, I would not go with the ultimate, most intense darkness there is, because you might want to go back and change something. And also it helps you to see balance in your drawing. And again, if an area is not working, leave it, work on something else. It might make sense later. Because also sometimes, you know, you might work on an area and you're so confident that you did the right thing and you followed everything you're supposed to do. So if it's not working, just wait for it. Sometimes, you know, things work when they are seen in relation to something else in the drawing. Okay. All right, so let's go to the mountains. The mountains are very faint, they're very light. So what we need to do is we need to, first of all, look at the darker areas and I'm just doing like a barely there hatching for it because I just don't want it to be too pronounced. Very light, keep it very light. And honestly, I wouldn't do much more with these. Maybe the top over here of this one. But again, using the side, getting some kind of very broken up lines is what you want. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work a little bit on this cliff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start shaping it a little bit more. I am using the tip now because I have enough. And it does have kind of like a dark rim around it. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to think about the difference in the cliff, the part where you're seeing the rock, and the part where it has some greenery. So you're going to have more softness here, and this is going to have a little bit stronger lines. And in the one I did earlier, you can see that I used some just stronger, more bold lines and less squiggling, because I'm not really seeing that in there. I'm seeing more kind of bold lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do the separations that are giving it the shape. And I'm just going to do it by using just contour lines, hatch lines, sorry. Just a single hatch, not crossing them over. I want them to have just a slightly stronger feel than the rest. Okay. And then over here, this kind of seems to go into that greenery. So I'm going to go back to putting some of the squiggles. And see, that's one instance where, you know, I'm glad I didn't go too dark at first, because this is allowing me the opportunity to shape it. Okay, let's go back to this one. Okay, again, I'm just using vertical hatch lines. And again, you know, just the spontaneity of you know, putting in these lines and how quick you do it, you know, it comes with practice, because, you know, when you're first doing it, you're a little bit more methodical, and that's normal. Just as long as you don't go too dark, you will probably have good results early on. And see, I'm seeing it here kind of going in a different direction. And again, I'm going to pull in my greenery a little bit. And then here I'm getting a little bit more texture in the rock. I'm also getting a dark area here. So I'm hatching, and I'm hatching close together to get some darker results. I have kind of a nice strong line here. Put a line, put a little bit of hatching on it. And I know that you're gonna think I'm drawing like I'm in a marathon. Don't feel that you have to do that. I just want to show you as much as I can during this session. Okay, so while I'm here, I'm just going to put this kind of this reflection that I have in the water, and I am going to start with some light lines. I want to give it a different feel than, you can see how dark this is. We're going to go over here, and I'm just going to cross hatch just very slightly, not everywhere, just because I want to keep that lightness in here. Just wherever you see it get darker, give it a cross hatch. Where it's light, just keep that one hatch. Okay, so we're going to go into this dark area in here. And to get something really dark, it might take a while. So I'm making my hatch lines darker. And I'm moving up over here. So this over here has, again, the feel of these guys up here. So again, I'm just gonna do some light squiggles. I'm going to give this dark area a little bit of a crosshatch, just to give me like, it's kind of just like pre-darkening an area so that when you work on it next, you're not working on just completely white paper. Okay, so we have oops, lost my picture. Okay, so we have basically worked on this part, this part. We're gonna do the trees next, okay? So I'm gonna start with this little guy over here. And I had the shape in lightly, so I can go with the tip, more confident. And then some of them, like the ones that are kind of in the back, they're a little bit lighter. So I'm actually gonna treat them with just a hatch. Okay, so this is relatively small. I mean, you kind of want to do in it whatever works. It's not going to show that much. If it were bigger, I would definitely do more of kind of a rounded contour around it. It seems to kind of get lighter as it goes up. And then I'm just going to I had the shape put in. I'm just doing a very light hatching over here. And as you get to the top of them, you know, a little stippling, which is basically just dots. And when you do this, make sure that you don't press too hard because you can ruin the tip. So you really should not hear this. And stippling was my nightmare to teach when I was teaching children things like pointillism, because you just hear bang, 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 and then their pencil or pen doesn't work, or brush. Okay. Okay, we'll work a little bit on kind of the little shrubs that are over here. And that would be a fun area to use, just kind of just different textures. And sometimes you don't have to, I mean, sometimes you can just work with, you know, just single lines. A lot of them look like they're just kind of lines fluttering around. Doesn't always have to be that studied. Okay, and then this area, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a ground. And I'm doing a very light cross hatching. I'm just going to put just some squiggles. So this area is not as intense as this or this over here. So I'm just going to give it just some light squiggles to just suggest that it's got greenery. And then this area goes quite a bit darker here. And also, you know, one of the tricks with drawings like these is to very delicately distinguish between the dark and the light areas. So, I mean, the thing with a lot of these Asian paintings and drawings is that they're very elegant because they're very simple, but they're very clever. So, you know, just, you know, think about where you're going to put your lines and just finely differentiate your dark from your light areas. Okay, there's a cute little fence over here, which I'm going to put, and it has kind of this shape. And then, you know, just line, because I want it to look organic and like handmade, I'm not going to make all my lines, you know, the same length. So that just makes it look a little bit more just like somebody made it. Okay, I'm going to start going a little bit darker here. And I'm going to give the area behind it just almost looks like tall grass. So I'm just going to do just lines, almost like a hatch, but in different directions, just to kind of make it look like grass. So again, that's an example of how you can use a certain technique to create a texture. So if you're doing something like grass, you know, doing hatching, like vertical, then slightly diagonal, and then, you know, you could even do them in like, you know, a slight wave. So again, you know, just use everything, use every technique when you're doing a drawing like this. Okay, gonna work a little bit on this tree trunk up here. Okay, I realize we have only 15 minutes left, and so work a little bit more, and then you kind of show me what you're doing and maybe answer some questions. Okay, so I'm gonna give this a little bit more definition since I already have the shape down. Now remember, with trees, as a rule, you are going to think of it, you know, starting from being very heavy and thick to going lighter and looser. So, and remember that the growth that is on the top is going to be the newer growth. So it's going to be lighter, more delicate. And as you get to more established branches, they're going to be darker, thicker, and feel heavier. So even, you know, the way you hold your pen will be very suggestive of the area that you're working on. It's going to show. Okay, so over here, I'm going to use a cross contour, which is basically doing rounded type hatching. And it looks like the light is coming from over here, so I am getting some darker areas here. And again, this would be an area where stippling would be fun because you kind of want to have the leaves kind of trail off. You can start some of them, you know, with almost like little squares, little diamonds, and then phase them out. And it's kind of cool how these are kind of meeting them, saying hello. Okay, so this, of course, will still need some more work. You know, not terribly much, especially if you're working small, but it's the kind of, I mean, the more work you do to it, the more detailed it's going to look. Oh, we did not do this bottom area. Let me just show you a couple things real quick. So ideally, what we would do is we would just try to darken this area. We had started with doing the water, and then it's going to get darker down here. Now for this plant thing here, what I felt I wanted to do is I just kind of just put in the, you know, just shapes next to each other. In different sizes, kind of following what I'm seeing. And just kind of just fill in some darkness in between them. And see, that would start giving and you don't have to do this everywhere. If you just do it in a few key areas, it'll give that effect for sure. And then you've got the branches that kind of come out. And one thing to do with trees and branches always is, you know, just be very mindful of all the curves. You never want to have a straight line in a tree. That's one thing that, you know, I kind of have seen a lot with that kind of that branch that sticks out. There's never, maybe just a palm tree might have straighter lines, but basically, you know, all your branches, they're going to come out from somewhere and they are going to curve because of gravity, because what they might be holding on their branches. So, you know, and some trees are curlier than others, but just make sure that, you know, you don't put any straight lines. Let's see, just kind of just lightly going around some of those shapes. And then in some areas they're a little bit more defined, so you can just kind of draw more of the shape. Okay. And then one last thing. So I just felt that I didn't want this area to be kind of, you know, empty when I worked on my other ones. So I just kind of did some just really loose kind of lines just coming off, nothing that would be distracting, just so that, you know, I activate that space. And this bridge could use a little bit more work. So everything basically needs kind of maybe 1 or 2 goes over it. And then also, you know, just, you know, put in some random lines, you know, work outside the lines a little bit. And you can even do like, you know, figure out how your name is in Chinese and you can sign it on the side. Okay, so let's see what everyone is doing. Okay. So what does everyone think? Can you unmute them, Melissa?
I just did, but it's still not letting me unmute for some reason. So everyone's going to go and unmute themselves on their own.
Okay.
I don't know why that feature doesn't seem to work anymore.
Doesn't matter. I was going to say, Noelle, can you hear me?
Yeah, let me just find you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can't see you, Mom, but I can hear you. Yes.
It doesn't matter. I just wanted to say, I don't know, but the way the images come across, you know, via email, honestly, you saw a bridge, you saw a fence, you saw all sorts of things that I didn't see. I know I don't have great vision, but is there any way we can improve
yes,
quality?
yes. This is the same picture I sent you. Okay.
Yeah, it is not this. I mean, it is. Yes, now it is. I can see things in your picture that I cannot see in mine.
Because you need to save it in photos.
That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did.
I'll check, Mom. Luckily, I can come check your device, but I have exactly the same picture you guys have, and I just saved it in photos, and
I was
view
just
it from
curious
photos.
when else had an issue like that.
No, it seems like that seems to be a struggle with everyone. So I will send out an email to everyone or to Justin to send it to let you know how to deal with the photo. But let's see if there's any questions about the techniques and all of that. We'll figure out the photo thing later.
Sure.
Anyone have any questions? Is it harder or easier than you thought?
It's okay. I have a question about the water. If you're going to shade it in with the light blue wash, you
Yes.
still want the lines? I mean, they're not really needed, are they? If you put in the blue wash?
Well, I'll kind of show you.
Yeah, I see you did them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Well, I could
You
see
know,
it better down there.
barely, just very little.
No, you can't put it back on the pad thing and
Oh,
then we
I
can
didn't know that
see.
you guys could still see the pad. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
just
see.
did,
I see.
yeah. You know, and again, I think this is something that you can kind of use your eye for. Maybe the type of work that you did in it doesn't need it, but for me, I felt that it was heavily worked elsewhere, and I just felt that that gave it just a touch of balance, but you don't have to do it. Yeah,
No, no,
Marlene,
I
how
think
did
it
you
looks
do?
good. It looks
Marlene,
good.
unmute yourself. Just click the microphone red button.
It's
Okay.
not a red button. That's for
Oh,
record. No.
it has a microphone. Anyways,
Just asked it. I
Okay,
okay,
I'm unmuted.
okay. How'd you do, Marlene?
Well, with my 4 eyes that I'm
I
seeing,
know.
I don't know. Can you?
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, that's great. I'm so
For you,
proud
Mar.
of you. That's wonderful. Carol? Wow, beautiful. Carol, you know, Carol
Wow.
does inks really, really nicely. Sharon, are you going to show me?
Sure.
Okay.
It needs work, of course, but I was just trying to keep up with your lines.
I know. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Okay. I'll
Wow.
work on it.
Fantastic.
I like
It's
the
great.
ink too.
It's great. You know,
I
honestly,
like
I mean,
working in it.
when I'm asking to see what you did, I'm just trying to see, you know, what worked, what you took out of it. I don't expect to see a finished drawing at all. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, like I told you, I am working fast because I want to cover a lot of areas. And we have the recordings of each class. If you decide to do it tomorrow, day after, you can always go back to it and, you know, start it over or just fill in the gaps of where, you know, you couldn't catch up. Phyllis? That's great. Beautiful. So good. So good. Susanna, you didn't show me yours. No?
It
Looks great.
It
Yeah.
looks great.
Jerry?
It's awful, but I'll show you.
It is? Okay. Suzanne, Lucia? Looks good. Great. Edith, how are you? Want to show me? Nuera?
Oh, I can't.
Oh,
that's
wow. That's great.
I need to see it.
These look great. These look great. I mean, you know, I just, the one thing I really want from everyone is to realize that, you know, that you're still just learning how to do this. So make sure that you give yourself some credit. And
I'm not worried about making my project look like the picture.
you know,
I don't care if the trees are different. I just do something. It doesn't have to look just like it.
well, you know, I mean, there's lots of liberties you can take to make it your own. The thing is, you know, we use a reference because it really does help you with proportions, with distances, with how things sit together. And I do like to look at different art and see how it was tackled. So yeah, I mean, and you know, you have to remember that you know, we're doing this to enrich our minds and souls, and nothing should be frustrating. So you should have
It's
fun with it.
frustrating. You know, it's
And that's
frustrating.
okay, but it's a good frustration. I'm frustrated with all the time when I paint because, and if I weren't, I don't think I would have the bug to do it, you know, all the time and get better. That's the passion. That's the fire, you know, and fire doesn't always feel good. It just, you know, yeah. Does anyone
You
have
do
any?
a drip version of this.
Geraldine showed you hers, but did you see Geraldine's?
No, she didn't show me.
She put it up for a second.
Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry. Oh, it looks great,
Nice.
Mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank
Why don't you like it?
Now,
She did it like this so that you couldn't see it.
I don't know why
That's
she
funny.
doesn't like it. No, I'll tell you what, she will actually like it tomorrow. That's how she is. She's mad at it right now. And then tomorrow she's going to call me and she will say, you know what? I actually think I like it. That's her. That is,
She doesn't like anything she does.
I know.
Do you?
I know. Well, it's a good thing I like what she does. So, yeah.
you're all so nice. Yeah.
So,
We like it,
okay.
Jerry.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Did we see everybody? Somebody's holding out there. Susanna, we didn't see yours, did we?
We
Did we
did
see
briefly.
Michelle's?
Didn't we? Oh, there you
Nice.
go. Wow. Beautiful.
I
Yeah.
think they're great. And I think there's, there's a lot that one can do with this reference. And if you go to Pinterest and just put in, Asian ink drawings, you'll find a lot of inspiration. And you'll also find a lot of inspiration to do these colors in the background. And, make sure that you don't want to turn it into a watercolor because the ink pen really has its beauty. So and some of them have like some light pinks or light yellows, like where the sun would be. So there's lots of fun stuff you can do with it. So I hope that you are getting more confident with ink pen. It does take time. If I were you, I would just doodle. If you like to doodle, if you're waiting for an appointment or something, just, some of those little sketchbooks are great, and you will start getting the hang of it, and you'll start discovering your own, kind of inking techniques that would work for certain textures. So I think everyone's looked really good. I look forward to getting them via email or text so I can really see them a lot better. And please make sure you ask me any questions that you might have. And that's it.